Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Ask a Bestselling Author. My name is Dr. Angela, the Author Incubator, and I am joined today by best-selling author Majeed Mogharreban. He is the author of Fearless Leadership, but he is also the author of a book called Winning at Life, which he was the co-author of. So today, Majeed, I want to ask you, you've done a book as a solo author, you have done a book as a co-author. Which is easier, and is having a co-author a good strategy?
For me, it was not a good strategy, having a co-author. The result was not ideal. I went into a co-authorship thinking it was going to be easier. And my co-author had already actually written a book, and we were doing sort of a second version of the book, positioning it to a different market. And my co-author was very generous with his content, great mentor. I got nothing bad to say about the co-author. The process was harder. It was because I was sort of second guessing the methodology and second guessing the strategy. And so, we didn't see eye to eye on all those pieces. Once the book was published, we wanted to go in different directions. So it was just more complicated than it needed to be. It wasn't a true expression of, my philosophy, that sort of thing. And it ended up not being easier. And then, of course, we have the splitting the profits, which was not actually a problem because we didn't have profits.
But you probably I bet you spent several hours trying to figure out how you would split the non-existent
we had
profit.
Contracts, and what about this, and what about that, and disagreements about things that weren't even a reality.
Did never happen, yeah.
Yeah, so, being a solo author, it's much more nimble. You can shift. Like when I launched my book, I launched it under one title. We changed it to another title. That was a 5-minute conversation.
Can you imagine with a co-author?
Yeah. So when is a co-author, and I'll tell you, I was at the very beginning of my career, and he was sort of at the end of his career, so he had this status and credibility that I thought that I might be riding on the coattails.
Yeah.
But it ended up that the book was actually more of a homage to him. Like, look at what an amazing guy he is. He's an amazing guy. He's very well accomplished. And so people read the book and they're like, I want to hire that guy.
Yeah.
That didn't work.
Nope.
So, yeah. So that's...
You always want to be the only, fish in the pond. You want people to read your book and want to hire you. You don't want to give them a whole bunch of options for who they can hire.
Yeah. So I can't personally speak to when co-authoring is a good strategy, but I know certainly the process that we went through, having a co-author would just be horrible because there would just be so many conflicting ideas.
Yeah. So this is the thing. Most people think co-author, half the work, half the work. Ends up being, I think, about 100 times the work.
Yeah.
Every single decision becomes a conversation, even decisions that are never even going to matter.
Yeah.
So my advice is avoid co-authoring. If you want someone to play a role in your book, this is what I would have told you with Winning at Life. That guy who you co-authored it with would have been a great forward author.
Sure.
You could have talked in your introduction about how you were inspired by his book, and then create your own process. By all means, promote and co-promote somebody, but to co-author and to give that up has long-lasting negative implications in most cases. That's what we got for you. So if you are thinking about a co-authorship, make sure you think it through all the way. And join us for another episode of Ask a Bestselling Author.